Shane Van Gisbergen all but confirms his move to America. Eric Almirola says he needs to make a retirement decision in the next 2 months. And Denny Hamlin says that even Mark Martin would be aggressive in today's NASCAR. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Happy Monday, folks. So much to get to. Some free agency talk. Shane Van Gisbergen, Eric Almirola, Denny Hamlin once again defending his aggressive driving. And as I speak right here, right now, NASCAR is conducting an important 2-day test at Richmond Raceway, testing a radical new front splitter. We'll get to all that and more in just a moment. First, as you can tell by this sleek hoodie I'm wearing, this episode is sponsored by Toxic Waste. Hazardously sour candy. Toxic Waste prides themselves as being the sourest candy brand available in the market. From hard candies to chewy candies to gummy worms, gummy bears, Toxic Waste does it all. Not to mention their TikTok famous slime liquor that you've probably seen on social media. Shop online at toxicwastecandy.com. I'll put that link down in the description. I'll also put a link to their Amazon storefront as well. Okay, you get past that sour layer, but then you get to that sweet blue raspberry flavor underneath. Toxic Waste. Shop online at toxicwastecandy.com. Try them out for yourself. Much to get to today, like I said. First and foremost, NASCAR is testing an all-new splitter at Richmond today and tomorrow. Remember, this test was originally supposed to take place at New Hampshire a few weeks ago, but inclement weather forced them to postpone. The teams are testing a new up-down or lift splitter, as it's being called. NASCAR says they've tested this new piece not only digitally through simulation, but also in the wind tunnel with multiple cars. Now they're conducting a real-world test, hoping the results match up. This new splitter is extremely interesting. Again, teams are calling it a lift splitter because that's precisely what it does. This splitter is designed to create lift when the car is in clean air by itself. And it's designed to add downforce to a car that's in dirty air. The goal is to make it easier for the trailing car to handle, in turn creating more passing opportunities at short tracks. I'll be really curious to hear what the drivers say they felt in the car, so we'll talk more about this probably later this week, but that's what's happening right now at Richmond Raceway. Next up, before we completely distance ourselves from Richmond, on Saturday, Denny Hamlin spoke to the media, and once again he discussed and in many ways defended the move he made at the end of last weekend's Pocono race. Remember when he slid up the track, slightly rubbed Larson and forced the 5-car into the wall? Hamlin did admit this past weekend that he would need to be more cautious around Kyle Larson going forward. But he also said this quote that I actually thought was very interesting. Hamlin said, quote, "Even Mark Martin would have to adjust his driving style in this new car. I wish we could go back to the old days, but we can't. You adapt or die. I've gone more aggressive because I've gotten used up by aggression." Having spoke to Mark Martin a couple times in recent years about aggressive driving, I'm not so sure Mark Martin would have changed his style too much, even to fit the modern day. I mean, Martin Truex Jr. still exists, and I think he is clearly a holdover from that Mark Martin era of driving. So he's proven that more or less it's still possible to be very respectful and very clean and still very successful. But Denny Hamlin's larger point that I think was actually echoed by several other drivers this weekend is that it's become more acceptable to race very aggressively, to put your competition in compromising spots. We've talked about this, but the cars are more equal than ever. They're as aerosensitive as they've ever been. It's hard to pass. With stage racing, the importance of playoff points, guys aren't laying over in the opening laps. No, every lap of every race, drivers are racing extremely hard, trying to hold on to every ounce of track position they can. All of these factors have made it harder to pass than ever before in NASCAR history, and so you gotta be a little more greedy if you wanna move through the field, if you still want to get results. My problem with Denny Hamlin's move at Pocono last weekend wasn't necessarily the move itself. Of course, that's not how I would try to win a race if I was in his shoes, but I'm also not a professional race car driver, what can I say? But my issue wasn't so much with the move, it was more so with Hamlin's almost denial afterwards. I think now he's sort of accepted that, okay, maybe that was a tad bit over aggressive. I may have to deal with the consequences. And that really sums up my new philosophy. My new mindset is, as long as you're okay with the other driver evening the score? Make whatever aggressive or even borderline over-aggressive move you want. Just don't be mad when they do the same thing to you. Times have changed. I'm not sure if Mark Martin would have adapted if he still raced today, but we saw last year Ross Chastain made a ton of enemies, yet still advanced to the championship 4, almost won the title. Joey Logano bumped Martin Truex Jr. at Martinsville in 2018 and went on to win the dang war. Kevin Harvick last year tried to get even with Chase Elliott and self-police at the Charlotte Roval, but Chase Elliott charged through the field anyways, and Harvick was the one who wound up wrecking himself out. Sure, I can point to just as many examples of drivers getting even with one another, but I think the point is, right now, aggression is more widely accepted by drivers than it's ever been before, and it may very well be the recipe for success. I mean, Martin Truex Jr. is leading the points right now. I guess we can't lose sight of that. But come playoff time, we'll see what wins out. Clean, respectful racing or aggressive, maybe a little over-aggressive racing. It's one of the things I love about NASCAR is that we do allow these two different philosophies, personalities, driving styles to flourish. NASCAR's not going to step in too quickly and shut someone down for, pushing the envelope a little too far. It's up to the drivers, more or less, to self-police themselves within somewhat tight parameters, sure. I don't know, let me know what you thought of Denny Hamlin's comments right there. Now I want to pivot and talk a little more about NASCAR free agency. That has been the hot topic this summer, sparked in many ways by Shane Van Gisbergen's win at Chicago, a new name entering the fold. He confirmed this weekend that he is planning to leave Australian V8 Supercars to pursue a racing career in America. He said he's still not sure if it will be a full-time or part-time NASCAR opportunity. He even seemed to hint at the possibility that he could go race Xfinity next year before committing full-time to the Cup Series. Here's some of what SVG said, quote, "When I study it, Marcus Ambrose did 3 years before he went to Cup full-time. Juan Pablo Montoya was pretty much a full season as well. Nobody has ever gone into Cup. And I have no illusion that those ovals are going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of time to learn. I don't have a plan. Hopefully I'll work it out when I'm over there." And I think that last line is referencing his upcoming Indy road course start. So maybe in a couple of weeks, Shane Van Gisbergen will get the chance to sit down with the apparently multiple teams who have sent him full-time Cup offers and start to iron things out, start to make some serious decisions. That could be coming in the next couple of weeks. Now, when I hear that quote for the second time, maybe he's not hinting at an Xfinity ride. He's more just saying, hey, no one's ever gone full-time into Cup just like that, except for me, just highlighting the challenges. I don't exactly know. I think if SVG comes to America next year, he'll likely be in Cup. That's just my instinct. Unless there are no good Cup Series rides available. If the Spire 77 is the only seat available and he's not feeling it, then maybe he could find a really competitive Xfinity Series ride. Let's talk about some of the seats that may be available for Shane Van Gisbergen real quick. First on the docket is Trackhouse. That team I still think makes the most sense. He's raced for Trackhouse. He's already won for Trackhouse in the NASCAR Cup Series. He's about to make a second start for Trackhouse. The problem there is that Trackhouse would need a third charter, and recent reports from Sports Business Journal, Adam Stern says that charters could go for over $30 million a piece. I don't know what kind of sponsorship SVG would be able to bring over, or if Justin Marks and Ty Norris and that team would be willing to foot that bill, or if any other team out there is even willing to sell. That's the problem. Someone has to be willing to sell for there to be a market. $30+ million, and I've heard from my friend Brendan Poole, Xfinity Series driver, who's he's talking to teams about racing next year. He says that he thinks that number is quite a bit higher. So yeah, Trackhouse makes the most sense initially, but when we start thinking about charters, that makes it tough. Same goes for 23XI Racing. That's a bold team, a very aggressive team, but they too would need a third charter. I don't know if they're anywhere close to negotiating on one. So yeah, those two teams, it may be tough. It may be tough for SVG to race there. Stewart-Haas Racing, to me, still seems like the most seamless fit. But of course, that's depending on what Eric Almirola does. And not to pivot too far off topic here, but this past weekend, Eric Almirola was on SiriusXM NASCAR radio and said there was pressure on him to make a retirement decision somewhat sooner rather than later. He said, quote, "They, Stewart-Haas, have to plan for the future way more than I do. I'm very capable of pivoting and changing and switching, but the race team, there are a lot of moving parts with the race team. So the race team certainly needs to have an idea of what's going on, and the sooner, the better. Those are active discussions, and there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of variables, and it's complicated. It's not very easy." Almirola then went on to say that he expects to make a decision within the next 30 to 60 days. That's a pretty wide net. 2 months. We could be waiting another 2 months for Eric Almirola to make a decision. We'd be well into the playoffs at that point. That seems a little late in the game, although, and I'll mention my friend Brennan Poole. If you haven't listened to the latest episode of Power Hour, I'll link it down below. It's our new podcast. We go into a lot of this stuff in great detail, but in that episode, Brennan brought up a great point I hadn't thought about. Eric Almirola hasn't made a decision on his future yet. Martin Truex Jr. hasn't made an official decision on his future yet. Even Denny Hamlin doesn't have a contract in place yet for next season. Why? Why? On one hand, sure, they may be weighing a lot of different factors, Truex and Almirola especially. Do they want to go home, hang out on a boat, hang out with family? But Brennan Poole made a great point. NASCAR just signed a new TV deal for the Xfinity Series last week. A new contract that will go into place beginning 2025. Negotiations for the Cup Series broadcast rights are still ongoing. Some of these drivers, especially those who kind of control their own futures, like Almirola with Smithfield, Truex with Bass Pro Shops, Hamlin with FedEx, those drivers may be waiting until NASCAR signs a new deal for the Cup Series. And once we know how much money is going to be coming in from TV a couple years from now, the drivers may better know what to ask for. I mean, what if the teams all of a sudden are making twice as much money as they are under this current deal? You bet Denny Hamlin, Truex, Almirola, they're gonna want a larger chunk of that pie. So Almirola is casting himself a wide net. 2 months to make a decision potentially? My goodness. When you have Smithfield and those millions of dollars behind you, I guess you have all the power. Almirola has quite a bit of leverage. Okay, but let's get back to Shane Van Gisbergen though. Let's say Almirola does choose to retire at year's end. I still think that's the best fit for Shane Van Gisbergen, even though it's a Ford team, even though he may have to wait 2 months until things get confirmed. Beneath the difficult negotiations, I just think that lineup of Ryan Preece, Chase Briscoe, Josh Berry next year, and Shane Van Gisbergen, I think that's a very powerful, still fairly young lineup. That just fits really well. I'm not sure if negotiation-wise it's gonna work out. I mentioned Spire a moment ago as a team that, maybe SVG would not want to race for, but that wasn't really fair to Spire. They're cooking something up over there. Depending on Gainbridge's involvement, if Andretti at any point becomes directly involved, they could be building something really special over at Spire, and that might be the kind of team that, a driver like SVG wants to be a part of. I imagine that 77 car is still up in the air beyond this season. The last team I want to mention is Colleague. Colleague's been in the news lately with Justin Haley leaving for Rick Ware. Colleague has at least one empty seat going into next season. We'll see if AJ Allmendinger wants to keep racing full time past this year, but there's a Chevy team, a fairly competitive Chevy team with some exciting young owners with Matt Colleague and Chris Rice as team president. I think that team could be a dark horse candidate to land Shane Van Gisbergen, although recent reports have linked Austin Hill to the number 31, so we'll see. Lots of interesting stuff happening behind the scenes this silly season. It's not the most top-heavy NASCAR free agent class in recent memory, and I think, with Ross Chastain and Alex Bowman and drivers like that signing extensions early in the year, Harvick, of course, announcing his retirement, a lot of the largest dominoes fell off the board pretty early. I don't even know, that wasn't really a good metaphor. So now it's been more about the B tier list of drivers, the Justin Haleys, the Michael McDowells, where's Zane Smith gonna go, this new guy, Shane Van Gisbergen. Recent rumors link Carson Hocevar to a Cup ride potentially. He just won his 3rd Truck Series race. This tier of drivers and teams is as interesting and as unknown as it's ever been. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. As far as SVG is concerned, which team do you think has the best chance of signing him? What did you make of Denny Hamlin's aggressive driving comments? Eric Almirola may not have a decision for 2 months. Can we wait that long? 2 months? Whew. Leave a comment down below. But that is gonna do it for this episode, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR every single day. Be sure to check out my Richmond race recap I posted last night in case you missed it. And thank you to my Patreon supporters for your very generous support. That's right, yes, in case you missed it, I know I'm pointing you guys in a lot of different directions. Go check out Toxic Waste, go check out Power Hour, also check out my Richmond reaction. Last night's race was very interesting and shook up the playoff bubble quite a bit. But I will see you all again very, very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday, folks. Take it easy.